Gopijana Pallava Giridhara Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Pallava Giridhara Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Pallava Giridhara Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Pallava Giridhara Yasoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tirvanachari 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 Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Pallava Giridhara Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Pallava Giridhara Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Pallava Giridhara Jai Yasoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tirvanachari Yasoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tirvanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Pallava Giridhara Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Pallava Giridhara Yasoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tirvanachari Yasoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tirvanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Lalita Vishaka, Jaya Radhe Shyam, Lalita Vishaka, Jaya Radhe Shyam, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol, Jayam Vishnu Paramahansa Parvakacharya Astata Satashi Srimad, His Divine Loving Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koi Vaishnavinda ki, Namacharya Haridas Thakur ki, Ramshikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shri Gadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda ki, Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samakunda Radha Kunda Kirti Govardhan ki, Vrindavan Dham ki, Chamuna Dham ki, Mayapur Dham ki, Srimati Bhakti Devi ki, Srimati Tulsi Devi ki, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vasai Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitamani Namaste Saraswati Ki Manavai Vajayani Nivase Sasai Vasati Vasanai. Good morning, Hare Krishna. We're studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 72, the slaying of the demon Jarasandha. And today we're covering verse 8 through 10. And we'll do 8 together. And Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayan, and unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Naishtapareshu abhadreshu nicham bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttamas loker bhaktir bhavati naistiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, whose praise with transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. ṛṣīṇāṁ pitṛ-devānāṁ suhṛdām apina prabho sarveṣām bhūtānām īpsitaḥ kratu-rāḍ ayam ṛṣīṇāṁ pitṛ-devānāṁ suhṛdām apina prabho sarveṣām bhūtānām īpsitaḥ kratu-rāḍ ayam ṛṣīṇāṁ pitṛ-devānāṁ suhṛdām apina prabho sarveṣām bhūtānām īpsitaḥ kratu-rāḍ ayam
ṛṣīṇāṁ pitṛ-devānāṁ
ṛṣīṇāṁ pitṛ-devānāṁ
suhṛdām apinah prabho
suhṛdām apinah
sarveṣām bhūtānām īpsitaḥ kratu-rāḍ
īpsitaḥ kratu-rāḍ
ṛṣīṇāṁ pitṛ-devānāṁ
ṛṣīṇāṁ pitṛ-devānāṁ
suhṛdām apinah
suhṛdām apinah
sarveṣām bhūtānām īpsitaḥ kratu-rāḍ
ṛṣīṇāṁ pitṛ-devānāṁ
ṛṣīṇāṁ pitṛ-devānāṁ suhṛdām apinah prabho sarveṣām bhūtānām īpsitaḥ kratu-rāḍ ayam.
Vaishnavis, ṛṣīṇāṁ for the sages, pitṛ, departed forefathers, devānām, and demigods, suhṛdām, for the friends, api, also, naha, are, prabho, master, sarveṣām, for all, api, as well, bhūtānām, living beings, īpsitaḥ, desirable, kratu, of major Vedic sacrifices, ṛṣīṇāṁ, king, ayam, this. Indeed, my Lord, for the great sages, the forefathers, and the demigods, for our well-wishing friends, and indeed for all living beings, the performance of this king of Vedic sacrifice is desirable. Vijitai nipatim sarvam kritva cha jagatim vase samricha sarveṣām arhartva mahakartam. Vijita, conquering, Nipitan, the king, Sarvan, all, Kritva, making, Cha, and Jagatim, the earth, Vase, under your control, Samvridya, collecting, Sarva, all, Samvaran, the paraphernalia, Ahar, Rasva, execute, Maha, great, Kartam, the sacrifice. First, conquer all kings. Bring the earth under your control and collect all the required paraphernalia. Then execute this great sacrifice. Verse 10. Ete te parato rajan lokapalam sasambhavaha jitas me atmavate deham durjayo yo kritamavi. Translation and purport by disciples of Srila Prabhupada. These brothers of yours, O king, have taken birth as partial expansions of the demigods ruling various planets. And you are so self-controlled that you have conquered even me, who am unconquerable for those who cannot control their senses. Srila Prabhupada writes in Krishna, it is said that Bhima was born of the demigod Vayu, and that Arjuna was born of the demigod Indra, whereas King Yudhisthira himself was born of the demigod Yamaraj. Srila Prabhupada goes on to state, Lord Krishna told King Yudhisthira that he becomes conquered by the love of one who has conquered his senses. One who has not conquered his senses cannot conquer the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the secret of devotional service. To conquer the senses means to engage them constantly in the service of the Lord. The specific qualification of all the Pandava brothers was that they always engaged their senses in the service of the Lord. One who thus engages his senses becomes purified, and with purified senses, one can actually render service to the Lord. The Lord can thus be conquered by the devotees through loving transcendental service. Om Agyanat Simrandasya Jananjana Salakaya Chaksu Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadanmayam Tadanti Swapadanti Ham Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvarutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Vitam Scha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopisa Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosute Tapta Kanchana Gorange Radhe Vindavanishri Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapa Dhruvyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Bhavanevyo Krishnabhevyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So in this royal assembly in which Krishna is speaking to Yudhisthira, there's so many relatives, kind relatives and well-wishing friends present, as well as spiritual masters. And Yudhisthira begins to explain how he wanted to perform this Rajasura sacrifice to establish for everyone, even the demigods, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's not that that was particularly clear at that time. And even Lord Brahma, when Krishna was just a little boy, he stole his cowherd friends and all the cows. And then just a couple years later, Indra tried to inundate and kill everyone in Vrindavan, all the inhabitants. And then later on, there was an altercation over a parijata tree, over just a tree. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Nadir Govinda Sarvakarna. Everything is coming from Krishna. He's the source of everything. He's the controller of everything. Yet Indra decided to go to war with him. What to say of Lord Shiva? He sided with his follower Banasura in a war against Krishna, Lord Shiva. Srila Prabhupada had said that most people on the planet didn't understand that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is a devotee, Yudhisthira. He is wanting to establish this fact because this is very, very important in people's spiritual realizations, is that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These are sweet, loving exchanges between Krishna and his devotee. Just like nectar. Krishna likes to hear his devotees glorified. He likes to glorify the devotees. In the nectar devotion, it says that it's an offense to glorify anyone in front of the deities. And one day in LA, Brahmananda was in Prabhupada's office room, which had a desk like this, and right across were his deities. And Brahmananda was going on and on about the glories of a devotee who was doing some wonderful devotional service. And suddenly he stopped, he said, "Oh, Prabhupada, forgive me. I'm glorifying somebody else in front of you, your deities." And Prabhupada smiled and he says, "Krishna likes to hear his devotees glorified." Before the war in Ukraine, I was going every year to the Sadhu Sangha festival put on by His Holiness Naranjana Swami. And at one time they had 15,000 devotees coming from all over Eastern Europe and Russia. It was magnificent. And he would invite some of the best speakers and kirtaniers to come. And in the daytime, it was hard to choose which classes to go to. There were so many wonderful lectures. And then in the evening, there was ecstatic kirtans for hours. On the opening night, the first night I was there, and he started glorifying the devotees who came. And at first, in my mundane consciousness, I thought, oh, this is going to be a long night to hear about all these devotees. However, as the night went on, it got more and more ecstatic to hear all these wonderful transcendental activities about the devotees. Of course, it was brutal for the devotees being glorified. They don't want to hear themselves glorified. And one should never glorify themselves. But we can understand that Krishna's given us all some talents. And Srila Prabhupada explains that our talents are like zeros. And even if you have, let's say, 6 great talents, what is the value of 6 times 0? 0. But when we add 1 in front of all those zeros, when we take our talents and use them for Krishna, that 1 becomes 6,000. That's quite a bit. So that's why our abilities have some value when they're used in Krishna's service without expecting anything in return. Using our talents for Krishna is the beginning. We don't expect financial reciprocation or glorification, nothing. We want is the gold standard. Anya vilasita sunyam jnana kamane avritam anukulena krishnandu silanam bhaktir uttama. Anusilanam means continuous service, using the body, the mind, and the words in Krishna's service. It's action. Krishna Anusilya means service for persons related to Krishna or Krishna himself. And Anukulena refers to pleasing behavior. So it's pleasing to everyone, to Krishna and to the devotees. Uttama Bhakti, or unalloyed devotion unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This devotional service should be free from any extraneous motive and devoid of any fruitive karma, impersonal gyan, and all other selfish desires. It's a sort of cultivation, which means action. And for this reason, it's sometimes recommended to check distracting materialistic activities. Meditation works for some yogis for a short time, but devotional service, engaged in devotional service, it purifies the heart, it connects one to Krishna, and it removes all nonsensical activities. It's the end and the means. It's what we do now, and it's what we will do in the future. I'd like to give a little history on the Pandavas, if that's all right. Just a couple generations before the Pandavas had appeared in the kingdom, the earth was going through a difficult time. Mother Bhumi, you remember Mother Bhumi went to Brahma, and then they went to Lord Vishnu in the ocean of milk to beg for help because so many demoniac personalities were taking birth as Kshatriyas on the planet. And just around this time, the king, Santanu, he died. He had 3 sons. However, his eldest son, Devavarta, took a horrific vow out of great love for his father. His vow was that he would never marry, he would never have children, he would never claim the throne, just so that he could marry Satyavati, because her father didn't want any obstacles for his grandchildren to obtain the throne. The 2 sons that she had, the first one, Bhishma did install him on the throne. However, he got involved in a war that lasted 3 years, and then he died in that war. The second son, Vitravira, had 2 wives that were arranged by Bhishma, Ambika and Ambalika. Now, Vitravira, he was very lusty, and he was engaged in sense gratification all the time. And consequently, he shortened his life. And he died of tuberculosis, no matter what the family did to save him. So this was this tragedy that the kingdom was in. It had no heir. And so Satyavati went to Bhishma and said, and at this time, this was allowed, this is Dwapara Yuga, it was allowed that a man could impregnate his widowed sister-in-laws. So she went to him to solve this problem, that he would give her daughter-in-law's sons. However, Bhishma reminded her he took this vow for her and his father, and that he would not give up this vow. Even if the earth gave up its quality of scent and water gave up its quality of moisture, he would not give up this vow. Bhishma had such incredible character, such a strong and noble personality. So he suggested to her that perhaps she should look at brahmanas, because even that was allowed at that time. And there was a secret that Satyavati had kept from everyone, and that was she had a son previous to marrying King Santanu. And that son happened to be Vedavyas. And the last time she saw him, he was going into the forest to perform all kinds of austerities. He was an ascetic, a sadhu, a great yogi. And he told her, he says, you just think of me if you need me, and I'll appear. And so she did, and he appeared. So she presented the problem to him, and because this was a virtuous solution, and because this was good, he agreed. However, he wanted these two young ladies to go through a year of austerity. And he explained that, for one thing is they have to be able to appreciate me as I am. And he had these matted locks. He had a big grizzly beard. He had red, fiery eyes. And in his words, he had a strong bodily odor. So Satyavati said, we don't have a year. We need to get this solution now. So he agreed, and he went to Ambika. But when Ambika, nobody warned her, and she was expecting that the brother of her late husband would be a handsome Kshatriya. So she was terrified when she saw Vyasadeva. She shut her eyes very tightly and kept them closed. Vyasa went to Satyavati, and he told her, he says, well, Ambika is with child. However, he will be a very intelligent man. He'll become very learned. He'll be as strong as 10,000 elephants. And Satyavati was very happy. And they says, however, he'll be blind because of the fault of the mother. So Satyavati begged him, please go to the sister Ambalika. It's the same situation. But Ambalika was warned not to close her eyes. But she was so frightened, she turned completely white. And when Vyasadeva went to Satyavati, he told her, he says, Ambalika is with child, and he's going to be exceptionally pale, and he should be called Pandu. So Satyavati was really concerned that this doesn't sound like the kingdom's out of danger yet. Perhaps one more time, go back to Ambika. But Ambika was not very submissive to her mother-in-law. And so she coerced her maidservant, who was a Sudra, to take her place. And then Vyasa went to Satyavati. He informed her that the son would be very, very fortunate and will become to be known as the most intelligent man on earth. But he was going to be a Sudra. Then Vyasadeva left. So the three princes were raised by Bhishma. And he arranged suitable wives for Dhritarashtra, the chaste Gandhari, for Pandu, married Kunti and Madri. Pandu actually married Kunti from her Swayambhur, and Vidura had a nice wife arranged. Pandu was a good king, and he was compared to be equal as his predecessors. He had a strong proclivity towards hunting, and maybe a little too much. Unfortunately, he was cursed by a yogi, because this yogi and his wife used their mystic powers to improve their sense pleasure. which doesn't work in this material world. We all know this. The yogis should have known that. And Pandu shot the deer, and he was cursed to die if he should ever approach his wife like that. So at this time, Pandu, he went to the forest, and his wives followed him to perform austerities. However, he was very depressed because he had done a lot of good for the kingdom, but he didn't give a good heir, and that's a responsibility of a king. But Kunti, she had her boon, and that was given to her by Durvasa Muni. And so she told her son about it. She told Pandu about it. And Pandu was very happy about this, and he decided that he would call the most virtuous demigod Yamaraj and have a son. So when this child was born, a celestial voice called out that he would be called Yudhisthira, and he would be the most virtuous of all persons. He would rule the entire earth as emperor. Now he was born first. However, Gandhari was already pregnant for a year before this, and she didn't give birth. She became so frustrated, in such anguish, she struck her own belly and then gave birth to a lump of flesh. At this time, she was ready to discard it and move on. But Vyasadeva appeared, and he says, "Oh, don't do that. These are your 100 sons and 1 daughter. You need 100 clay pots." So he had her get 100 clay pots. They put in ghee and some other things, and the glob divided itself, and a section was put into each of the 100 pots, and they were covered. He said, "Wait a year," and then he left. So Pandu decided he wanted another son of exceptional strength to help his brother. So he had Kunti call Vayu, and at the time of his birth, the celestial voice proclaimed his name would be Bhima, and he would have superhuman strength. At the same day, Duryodhana was born, but he brayed like an ass. And all the other asses were braying along with him, along with crows were crowing, all these horrible sounds. Vultures were screeching, jackals. It was just the most terrible sound. Dhritarashtra, he called the learned Brahmas, he called his family, he says, "What do I do? What should I do with this child?" And he explained to him. They explained to him that this child would be the cause of exterminating the whole Kuru dynasty. You should abandon him. But Dhritarashtra couldn't do that. So after some time, Pandu wanted another son, an exceptionally famous son, and they decided that Indra would be able to provide such a son. And he performed austerities. He stood on one leg from morning to evening for a long time, and Indra appeared to him and vowed to give him a well-qualified son. On the birth of that son, the celestial voice declared his name would be Arjuna and showered flowers on the mother and the child. Madri, feeling left out, wished for children, and with Pandu's request, Kunti shared her mantra. However, Madri took a little advantage, and she called the Ashvahini Kumars too, and she was given 2 sons. So soon after, Madri and Pandu lost control of their senses, and Pandu died. And Madri performed sati rite. This left Kunti to raise the 5 young boys on her own. And as we know, in the Mahabharata, they underwent so many difficulties. And so here we are now, in this time of somewhat peace. They have their own kingdom, the Kurus have their kingdom. It looks like they can coexist. And Yudhisthira sees this as an excellent time to perform this sacrifice. In the purport it says, to conquer the senses means to engage them constantly in the service of the Lord. The specific qualification of all the Pandava brothers was that they always engaged their senses in the service of the Lord. One who thus engages the senses becomes purified, and with purified senses, one can actually render service to the Lord. The Lord can thus be conquered by the devotees through loving devotional service. So, Krishna, as he says in the Bhagavad Gita, yadi yadi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata bhūtānām dharmasya tadatmanam sajanmayaham. He says, whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, which we had on the planet, all these demoniac Kshatriya kings were arriving. And in the next verse in the Bhagavad Gita, he says that pitṛ-devānāṁ, that he establishes religious principles and delivers the sadhus. So here he is announcing a religious principle that's very important, is that Krishna is teaching us how to enter into his inner circle. He says, as you are so self-controlled that you have conquered even me, who am unconquerable for those who cannot control the senses. The senses are just gross matter, with a limited ability to perceive something. My eyes can see some things. Not so good. I'm sure there's many people in here whose eyes are better. But even better than our eyes are animals or eagle's eyes. And same with our other senses. They're all so limited. Smell. How long can we smell a flower before we can no longer smell it? Not very long. But compared to a dog can sniff out something a long ways away. So our senses are very limited, and they're prone to inaccuracy or simply being wrong. So unfortunately, our senses become overcome by lust. And Arjuna asked Krishna about this in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, O son of Rishi, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? And Krishna explains, it's by lust which burns like fire, and the sitting place is in the intelligence and the mind. If the intelligence is higher than the mind, and the intelligence is fed the absolute truth in the form of Srila Prabhupada's teachings, the mind will comply, because the intelligence is higher than the mind, and the senses will automatically have to be controlled because they are subordinate to the mind. To feed that intelligence, Srila Prabhupada gave us such a vast library of books, wonderful books, and his purports are so miraculous. They're his ecstasies. They explain everything from the very simplest concepts to the most advanced in such a way we can grasp in something and continue to grasp as we dive deeper and deeper. Actually, by reading Srila Prabhupada's books, we are having one-on-one personal association with him. He's available to everyone and anyone. So many people say to me, you're so fortunate that you had some association with Srila Prabhupada. But that was a long time ago. If it wasn't for what all that Srila Prabhupada left us, the temples, the programs, the books, the prasadam, the devotees, I could not have maintained a spiritual connection. So Krishna's pastimes are so enchanting that we can fill our mind with them. But the best way to do that, this is interesting. This is from the Harinam Chintamani. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he glorifies the holy name in the Harinam Chintamani. And he talks about a time that Lord Chaitanya came back from taking a bath in the ocean. And he came to the Siddhabakul tree where he found Haridas Thakur sitting and chanting. And he inquired from him the means by which the conditioned soul can easily attain liberation. Srila Haridas Thakur fell at the Lord's lotus feet and grasped them tightly. His entire body went into rapture, and he offered humble prayers, punctuated by shivering and tears. In a choked voice, Srila Haridas Thakur said, "My Lord, your wonderful pastimes are unfathomable. I am unfortunate and illiterate. My only anchor is your lotus feet. What is the use of asking me questions of a worthless person like me?" He's so humble, Haridas Thakur, and he really feels that way. Srila Haridas goes on to glorify the transcendental qualities. His eyes brimming with tears and his voice choked up, he grasps his hands together and begins to reply in a soft, gentle tone. Lord Krishna's name is like an eternal and transcendental touchstone. A touchstone can grant all desirable objects. The touchstone of Lord Krishna's holy name can give religiosity, wealth, sense pleasure, and liberation to a materialistic person. To a surrendered soul, a devotee, it offers pure love of Krishna. Lord Krishna and his holy name are identical. They are one and the same absolute truth and the all-inclusive, yet supreme independent form of dynamic, spiritual, full of emotion, without beginning or end. Always situated in pure goodness, the holy name descends to this world in the shape of letters as the complete incarnation and embodiment of the highest sweetness, rasa. Any object is known by 4 characteristics: name, form, quality, and activities. Of the 4 characteristic features, the Lord's holy name is the original because it awards cognition of the other 3. Therefore, chanting the holy name is prime religious activity of a Vaishnava. For the holy name gradually blossoms the Lord's form, qualities, and pastimes. The entire panorama of Lord Krishna's pastimes is present in the holy name. You have personally declared that your name is the highest absolute truth. This was spoken by the Acharya of the holy name, Srila Haridas Thakur. If we make the effort to sincerely hear the holy name, let the sound vibration enter our hearts through our ears, our hearts will become cleansed of all material inclinations, and we will be able to perform pure devotional service free of self-motivations, free from impersonal gyan or karma kanda. We'll be able to perfect our lives and enter into Krishna's inner circle and become fully immersed in our eternal loving relationship. The holy name gives us the ability to be fully immersed and engaged uninterruptedly in a devotional service. We can take it anywhere with us at any time. As Srila Haridas Thakur says, if we keep a materialistic focus, we could get all kinds of material benefits, but beware of those material benefits. They could also bring great distractions for lifetimes. If we put our effort into simply chanting, remembering the meaning, please, dear Lord Krishna, please let me serve you in the way that you like, to please you or your representative or your devotees. In this way, we can become very dear to Lord Krishna. And one last thought, which Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, the real holy name is the name which is imbued with the service mentality. Srila Prabhupada elaborated on this by saying, my dear Lord, for so long I have been engaged in Maya's service. Now I want to be engaged only in your service. So please, put me under the shelter of your eternal potency and uplift me. Pick me up and pull me away from Maya. I don't want to be her servant anymore. I just want to be the servant of you, of Radha, under Radha's energy, your eternal potency. So, Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Lord Chaitanya is teaching us that we should have no nadanang, najanang, nasundaring, no desires, and to chant the holy name in a humble state of mind. But Prabhupada made a comment that when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur ordered Prabhupada to spread the teachings of Lord Chaitanya to the Western world, Prabhupada said, well, I thought, let me become wealthy first and use my wealth in Krishna's service. So he said, but then Krishna obviously took everything away from me. I didn't want to take sannyas, but he forced me to take sannyas. And at the end, he's given me everything. So how do we actually understand that we should now renounce our pursuit of wealth and happiness and really take the holy name seriously, and if Krishna's taking things away, we don't feel like disturbed by Krishna's taking it away to make us surrender to him? Something like that.
Good question. Well, that was Srila Prabhupada's adhikari at the time. He was married, he had one child, and he had another one on the way. And it would have been such a scandal for him to leave his wife. It was just not proper. And the thing of it was his desire to make a lot of money was only, it was foretold in his astrology. He was not actually that inclined to making a lot of money, but he saw that it says I'm supposed to make a lot of money, perhaps this is my path. And sometimes we have to take a certain path, and Krishna may change that path. But you know that Prabhupada, in that verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, where Krishna says, for those who I'm very pleased with, I take everything away. And when we follow Srila Prabhupada's life, we see how gradually Krishna took everything away from him. And at the whole time, though, he was preparing. He was preparing and thinking and absorbed in how can I do this? How can I spread Krishna consciousness in the Western worlds? And some things he tried, like he went to Jhansi, he tried in that way. And it didn't work out because that was Krishna's plan. So, he always depended completely on Krishna.
Also, his astrology, it mentioned when he's 70 years old, he's going to have temples, go internationally and spread the religious movement all over the world, and he accomplished that. That actually came to pass.
Yeah, it did. And he did become one of the richest men.
Not really, but also a spiritual leader that spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. And the holy name.
Yeah.
You're going to pick whoever you want to pick.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Mataji, you just told that Krishna and his name are identical. Wonderful. So, I just want to know, then why mantra or maham? No, with all respect to mantra, would you? I would like to listen from you if I am chanting just Krishna, 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 or if I am chanting Maha Mantra. Second and third, I am chanting him chor, 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 means thief, thief, thief. So will there be any difference?
If I understood you correctly, you're asking if you should just chant Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. I mean, it doesn't hurt to chant Krishna, 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 but Lord Chaitanya, who went to the trouble to appear here, and he brought this Maha Mantra. And so this Maha Mantra is Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva Gachanata. It's recommended process. There's no other way. So we should just chant Hare Krishna in at least the minimum 16 rounds daily. Does that answer your question? Yeah?
Kind of.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, thank you very much for elaborating on the Mahabharata pastimes. And you took the story how Pandavas and Kukus tried to coexist together. And to the corollary to that question, my question is that, corollary to the point, my question is that how can, means in a joint family in India, how can peaceful coexistence takes place so that everybody is ultimately coming to Krishna? Especially in cases where everybody's Krishna consciousness may be different, some may be devotees, some may be not devotees. How that peaceful coexistence can take place so that ultimately everybody comes to Krishna? You can elaborate on that.
So you're asking, in a family, how can it be peaceful and everybody come to Krishna consciousness?
Yeah, especially when in the case that some are devotees, some are not, some are different grades of devotees. Devotee mood is different.
The most powerful way to do that is for yourself to become a pure devotee. That is the most effective means of getting other people to become a pure devotee. They will see, because they are close to you, they know you, so they know a lot of things that maybe aren't as congenial for spiritual life, and they'll see those things will drop away, and that you become this pure, enlightened being. And they will appreciate your association, and they want to attain the same thing. So for that reason, they'll follow in your footsteps. So that's the most important thing, is that we all seriously fly our own plane. Okay?
Means it's just save our own plane better.
Yeah, but I mean, it takes a lot of practicing, of following Prabhupada's example. For years, he tried to engage his wife in Krishna consciousness for a long time. And she just refused. She would just go and drink tea in another room, and he'd have his Namahata programs. And so it may come to a certain point in your life that there's some people you have to separate from in order to strengthen your spiritual life. And you'll know if they become a challenge in your spiritual practice, that you need to separate yourself a bit from them. It's hard with families because there are all kinds of different people in a family. And so we can give them bhagavatam, we can tell them what's in our hearts, and tell them how much we appreciate the teachings of Prabhupada, and try to share that. But if they don't want this, we can't force it onto them. The Krishna consciousness is a totally voluntary process. One volunteers. There's no force or coercion. And Krishna doesn't want anyone who's forced or coerced. So we just have to really take our practice very seriously. Okay? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, for the nice class. In the class it has been mentioned that in the material world, mystic powers do not work.
Well, they work, but they may not work for what you want.
Yeah.
So that's why there's no reason to attain mystic powers. If you need a power at a certain time, Krishna will give it to you. He says that in the Bhagavad Gita, right? What's that verse? Yes, thank you. Yes. So he's always there for the devotee. That makes me think of that time that the altar in London, when they built this altar, they forgot to put the bolts, secure the bolts properly in. And Prabhupada was doing the installation when the upper level started to fall. Prabhupada was not a particularly strong man. He was in his 70s. He jumped up and caught it and held it. Now, normally, I don't think a 70-year-old man, normal physical strength, could do that kind of thing. But Krishna gave him what he needed at that time when he saw the danger to Radha and Krishna.
Again, I heard in the class that once Prabhupada asked a person not to use spit or sputum to fix the stamps.
To what? I'm sorry.
Once Prabhupada asked a person not to use spit to fix the stamps.
Oh, not to lick the stamps, yeah.
And Prabhupada asked him to use water.
Yeah.
So he did. And when it came to the last stem, he did not have water. At that moment, he was trying to fix the stem with speed. And suddenly, Prabhupada opened the door and appeared before him. And Prabhupada said to him, I asked you not to use speed, but to use water. And you are again doing it. So, and in first canto also it is given that when a person surrenders to Lord Krishna, Krishna gives him some mystic power. And Prabhupada really had it. And in most cases even, Prabhupada could read the mind of the devotees and the persons. This is the mystic power.
Yeah, don't underestimate the power of your spiritual master.
Thank you, Mataji.
Jai. Gantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.